Tissue donation pertains to every hospital. I know that for the past day and a half, you've been talking about organ donation, but tissue donation is something that can happen in every facility, whether you're a large facility or a small facility. And we want to talk to you. We want those calls. So a little bit about my team here at Donor Connect. It's going to be different depending on which hospital you're at, what states you're in. I know we have a few from different states. So that's going to depend on where you live, where you work. But my team specifically, we have 9 individuals that function in our call center. We all work remotely. We all work in 7 different states is where we're currently staffed at right now. For example, I live in Florida. So yes, so we are all across the country. We do everything from home. That's the one difference between organ and tissue donation is all of our work is on the phone. And we all have various backgrounds. So you'll see that instead of nurses, we have people who come in from accounting, from criminal history backgrounds, to art majors, and we kind of learn how to do what we do, and we learn to love it. So a little bit about what is tissue donation. So I love this graphic. I know it's really small, but you'll see here, these are the main organs that are donated, but then there's also tissue. And tissue, one tissue donor can save and enhance and heal the lives. And I say save because some of these diseases are very debilitating. It's really heavy. Sometimes, it causes a lot of people to go into depression and they may choose to take their own lives. And so while we think of solid organ transplants as life-saving, tissue is also very much life-saving. So the one trigger for tissue donation is cardiac time of death. Really easy. Once they've reached cardiac time of death, we ask that you give us a call within an hour. And that way we can start working because it's not so simple and we have a time frame when it comes to what we need to do. So this is what Donor Connect authorizes. It's pretty standard across the board for the most part in all of the organizations that do tissue donation. So whole eyes or corneas, we contract with the Utah Lions Eye Bank who recovers this, but we do obtain authorization for them. Heart for valves, and I think Scott might talk a little bit about uses and what that looks like for recovery, so I will not steal his thunder. Bone donation, that is recovered from the long bones of the arms and the legs, the hip bone, the sternum with ribs, and costal cartilage. And they all have various uses, and bone is one of those things that can be used and processed to help the most individuals. Blood vessels of the abdomen and legs, and then full thickness skin grafts. We have 2 options. We can do it from the back only, or we can do it from the back, the legs, and the abdomen. And what determines what we recover is funeral plans. So we do not want to interfere with the way that a family wants to proceed with post-mortem cares for their loved one. So if they choose to have a viewing, we're going to do the back only. If they want to dress their loved one in something that skin may interfere with, for example, a tank top or a short sleeve shirt, we may forego skin. So we really want to make sure that we're not interfering with families because they're our utmost priority, right? We want to make sure that they're still able to say goodbye to their loved ones. All right, so a little bit of the referral workup process, and I say, and why it takes so long. We hear that so often. We've given you the call, you've got it. Why are you taking so long? Why can you not just get this family on the phone? I've got it right here. Let me put them on the phone with you. There is some steps that we have to take to make sure that we can actually do donation with this family. So the first is the initial referral. It comes through our call center. They take basic information, age, name, date of birth, basic symptoms, HIV, cancer, what diagnoses do they have that are pre-existing. Then what we're going to do is we're going to evaluate that. We're going to look in their medical records. We have access to HCA's medical records. We're going to do a quick eval. We're going to call the nurse. We might have to make a few extra calls. Maybe we found something concerning. We have to call what we call our processors. Those are our individual groups that take the tissue after it's recovered. They ultimately decide whether or not they take it. We might have to put a hold on the body. So we might ask you to put it in the morgue at your facility. We might need to call a funeral home if the body's been released to a funeral home and ask that they hold on to it. So this could take anywhere from 20 minutes to an hour to an hour and a half, 2 hours. It depends on the amount of calls we have and the amount of history that the patient has. Once we've done all of this, what we're going to do is we're going to get ready to approach the family. Now, in a perfect world, the family would answer my call the first time. But how many of you answer numbers that you don't know? Right. I don't either. So unless you text me or you send a voicemail, I'm not answering your call. So most of the time, families don't answer our first initial phone call. So we're sending them a text message and we're leaving a voicemail. They may choose to call us back, and if not, we're calling them back an hour later. This process can go on for several hours, right? So that also is why it takes so long. The family may not answer the first time that we're calling them. Now, if we do get a hold of them, they'll be like, I need to sit on this for a minute. Or I need to talk to Grandma Joe and Grandpa Billy. I need to talk about this with my family a bit. So call me back in 2 hours. So we've just added a little bit more time, right? We have paperwork that we have to complete also. This is the same paperwork that's completed for organ donation. It includes a medical and a social history questionnaire. I wish that it were shorter than it is, but it is not. It's 46 questions on one questionnaire, and I think 18 on the other questionnaire that talks about recent infectious diseases. Sometimes we might have to find another historian. Maybe the next of kin lived in another state and knew their history from 10 years ago, but doesn't know anything recent, so we have to call a roommate or a friend. And then once this process is done with our paperwork, I mentioned our processors. They ultimately accept our tissue, so we have to call them back if we've already spoken to them, or we're calling them the first time and we're going through everything that we know about the patient. Why they were admitted to the hospital, what do their lab values look like? What does their chest x-ray look like? What did the family tell us in their paperwork? What did they authorize? Are there any restrictions? And then they say yes or no. This process, depending on the age of the donor and how many processors we have to call, because not just one processor takes everything, also can take a while. It can take 10 minutes. It can take 45 minutes. So when I say, why does it take so long? It is a long process, and this is just one call or one patient. In a perfect world, we'd have one patient and we could move to the next. But instead, we're in different stages with multiple cases with this. So here's where some of our disruptions to the process come, and where you guys come in to help us. So late or untimely referrals. As I mentioned before, we have 1 hour that we would like you to call those deaths in. So when they're being called in 2, 3, 4 hours late, it pushes our entire process back. We have 24 hours to start recovery. So if we have a family that's taking 6 or 7 hours to get a hold of, a late referral plays a huge impact in that. So getting those referrals on time is a big deal. Premature calls and a release to a funeral home. I would love to say that all of the funeral homes love donation and want to work with us. But the reality is that we impact their process. It takes them longer to embalm a patient after tissue and organ donation. So if a funeral home is called before we've been able to evaluate our information and before we've been able to complete paperwork or talk to a family, that might hinder the process. The funeral home might get the body and say, I'm embalming in an hour. You have 1 hour to get a hold of that family. So if we can keep the body at the hospital and not let the funeral home take it, we have a higher chance of being successful with donation. And my last disruption to the process is having conversations with the family about donation. We like to be the ones who initiate that conversation with the family. It's what we do for a living. We've learned some tips and things that we can do to help the family through that decision-making process. And I think Maria is going to share some data with us that when a conversation happens at the hospital before we've had a chance to talk with the family, it is not fruitful. Um, it does not produce good benefits or good results for us.